Hello, friends. So, welcome to Global Trade Analysis. Over the last 15 years, I have been working for a global trade operation and dealing with the different trade scenarios. Since there are a lot of challenges in the trade, and understanding global trade requirement for a gateway and associated compliance with the trade transaction is little challenging and complicated, obviously. Hence, what I think that I'll be analyzing of global trade scenarios, associated compliance, optimize and analyze business problems, solutions, and I will be specially focusing on the logistic warehouse and global trade compliances. Today, what I'm going to analyze about export and import control for India. So let's begin. So before going to proceed that, this particular slide or this information or visualization, whatever I have presented in this slide or the PPT is just for information and knowledge purpose. India export around 7,500 commodities to around about 190 countries and import around 6,000 commodities from 140 countries. All these controlled by the government through the foreign trade policies. And foreign trade policy has at least 4 important goals. What are these goals? To protect India from traditional and non-traditional threats, to create an external environment which is conducive for an inclusive development of India, so that the benefit of growth can reach the poorest of the poor in the country. To ensure that India's voice is heard on the global forum and that India is able to influence world opinion on issues of global dimensions, such as terrorism, climate change, reforms of institution of global governance, and to engage and protect India diaspora. So let's talk about who is regulatory body in India. In that case, the DGFT, that's called the Director General of Foreign Trade, are responsible for formulating and implementing the foreign trade policy with the main objective promoting Indian exports. So this is open source. In this source, you can find most of the regulatory document freely accessible. Some of the things you cannot find because that's associated with the IEC code. So if you have IEC code, if you're a business or enterprises, and if you have IEC code, then you can access the information. Application cannot be made for the restricted goods without having the IEC code. No? So this is an open platform. You can get directly access of the regulatory documents. Just go to that regulatory updates. On drop-down menu, you'll find the import-export comment policy, Schedule 1 for import policy, Schedule 2 for export policy. Moving next. This is a link where you can find the detail. So there are various regulatory documents or reference documents available to control export and import. But most important, from my point of view, if you wish to understand India export and import process and compliances, these 5 books are very important. That is Custom Act, Foreign Trade Policy and Procedure, ITCHS classification, Custom Tariff Act, and Custom Manual. So Custom Act 1962 tells about the implementation, collection of duty imported and exported in the country. This act also deals with the import and export procedure, prohibition, importation, and exportation of the goods, penalty, offense, and much more. Whereas the foreign trade policy and procedure is a set guidelines and instruction established by the DGFT in matters related to the import and export of the goods in India. ITCHS classification, that's a classification of your goods, and that classification helps to identify the trade measures and the taxes. Custom Tariff Act, that acts provide for the rate of custom duty, the basic of duty assessment where the duty is to be levied, a reduction or exemption from the custom duty, or other system of custom duty. So other than 5 books, there are others, reference document, or you can say the documents which can help based on your scenario or the business scenario or the circumstances. So these documents actually help in the different circumstances or scenarios. So that also need to be kept in my mind, that or your mind, that these are the also documents which can be helpful to understand Indian customs. If you talk about this COMET, that is COMET is for dual use, custom valuation rules for valuation of the goods to avoid any kind of or evade the custom duty, and so on. Appendix is just form, Ayat Nirat form for a foreign trade policy statement, export promotion scheme. So what are the benefits, custom duty drawback, baggage rules. So all these you can go through. This also can be found from there. So once item is selected, then you need to find associated export and import control regulated by the government of India on the item, and how you can find it. So from getting schedule 1 for import and schedule for export. So what does schedule consist for? That schedule tells that whether your item or the HS code associated with the item is a free, restricted, ST, prohibited. So if it talk about the free, then the no license required, but export import policy condition to be fulfilled, but stipulated in the other act or law. Restriction, in that case, license is required, and the condition you need to fulfill. State trading enterprises, that are the government and non-governmental enterprises, including marketing boards, which deals with the goods of export or import, any goods import or export which is governed through the exclusive special privilege granted to the state trading. Prohibition, not permitted to export and import. Now the export classification mapping. So once you have ITCHS code item, then you can find the associated export policy, GST tariff rate, export incentive, duty, taxes, if any, drawbacks. If it is a service related, then service export, ACIS schemes that you can find from this. I mean, you can see also the screens of the ITCHS code, that's 0101, that's called the ITCHS code. Description is the item, export policy, that's whether that's restricted or free. If it is a blank, it means it is free. Now coming to this export control decision tree. So this is very important to understand. So before going to proceed for export, if your item, then you need to understand your item is whether that your item is a dual use item or not. If it is dual use, it is not dual use item, then you can find whether that item is prohibited, restricted, or free or so if your item is a dual use item, just go through it and refer the SCOMET policy. SCOMET policy, you need to classify. If item, there are 9 categories in that, and if your item in classified in that, then to apply for a license. If it is not classified, talk to the DGFT. You can directly interact with the DGFT for item classification. That's if your item is falling in that category, and if it is not classified, then you reach to the DGFT in that case. If your item is not a dual use or a military use item, then he can directly go to that and ITCHS code and the policy associated with that, with that, that's a prohibited, restricted, free. So if it is restricted, apply for license. If it is free, then you can go for export process subject to the condition of fulfillment of conditions, whatever is stipulated in that. Thank you.